You listen to your favorite mixes or songs on the radio, songs on the top of these Spotify playlists, and they're super wide, either on your monitors, your headphones, wherever. They're so wide. And then you listen to your mixes and you're like, what's going on here? I get it. Let's talk about it. Yo, what's good, guys? Inswain with Inswain Audio. Welcome back. If you're new, subscribe and stick around. I'm telling you, I drop videos every single day. You're not going to want to miss these gems. Anyways, let's get right into it. Today, I'm going to be answering a question somebody had off of Reddit regarding with stereo imaging. Let's go. So they said stereo imaging or something else. I noticed there's songs that are so wide that make you feel immersed. Everything seems spread out, detailed, and loud in your face. Or maybe it's some sort of an illusion trick with plugins on the master chain. I assume maybe mid-side EQ is the trick, but I'm not really sure. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, I would appreciate it. All right, great question. We all have this question. Right off the rip, the answer to, is it mid-side EQ is the trick? No, or at least not the entire trick. That's like saying, all these good meals, what's the trick? Is it salt? It's like, no, the meals might not have salt at all, or if they do, that's just part of the equation, a very small part of the equation. It's a combination of things. And the same thing goes for audio. Mid-side EQ alone is not going to make your mix wide. Is it going to help? Sometimes, but it's never going to be the entire answer. So what is the entire answer? Well, just like you probably guessed, it's a combination of things. Everything adds up to give you a wide mix. Now, I could sit here for 3 hours listing off different things to do, tricks, tips, all of that, but that's not really going to help you. I think just knowing the philosophy alone that it's not one thing, it's a bunch of things is really the main takeaway. We already kind of got that out of the way. So you don't need to look for some mid-side trick or, I always joke about Soothe. I love Soothe, but it's just like a meme like, oh, that's going to fix my mix. Like there is no one individual thing that's going to just take a narrow mix and make it super wide and professional. There's things that are going to help and that you can use a lot of times or sometimes, or maybe even all the time if it fits into your workflow, but there's never one single thing. So let's talk about a few of the things. Mid-side EQ can definitely help. What that is basically EQing the middle information versus the sides of the stereo information separately. And a lot of people think, oh, you just boost the sides. Yeah, that's the most straightforward way, but sometimes making cuts in the middle to make your mix breathe and have room can give you the sense of depth and width that you're looking for. So, it's not always boosting the sides, sometimes making dips in the middle or, just kind of giving you that thought process of think outside the box. It's not always the straightforward answer, but yes, mid-side EQ can help. Saturation, particularly mid-side saturation, can help. If you saturate the sides, it can make it feel wider. A big one is reverbs and delays, time-based spatial effects during the mix can really help make things feel huge, wide, have that stereo depth to it. And I think that's another main takeaway from this is that a lot of the answers you're looking for are going to come from the mix. Yes, you can do some things in the master and you can enhance things in the master, but it's better to handle it in the mix. I always use the example of if you want to make a guitar wider, when you're mixing, you could pan the guitar or do, make the guitar wider. But if you're trying to make the guitar wider when you're mastering, you're going to have to try to find those frequencies and, widen them up. But you're also going to be expanding the vocal and whatever may exist in those frequencies, right? You can't isolate out that guitar. So yes, stereo imaging on a master is good. I'm not saying that it's always a bad thing. It can help. But the more you do in the mix, the better you are because you can get more hands-on. So back to time-based spatial effects like reverbs and delay. If you, for example, pan something one way, you can put the reverb to the other side. That's a trick I like. Makes things feel huge, gives a sense of depth, and it helps it so that you don't always just put a stereo widener on everything because that's a common mistake that a lot of amateurs make is they try to make everything, super wide from left to right. Whereas that's okay, but sometimes you want to do some things just to the left, some things just to the right, some things, spread across. It's all about having variation and kind of thinking about things logically is what's going to give you a nice wide mix. As instead of taking everything and just smearing it across the stereo field, that usually doesn't sound good and it usually won't make your mix sound wide. Same thing for delay. You can have something coming out the left and the delay to the right and then have that delay sent to a reverb on the left. So it's like left, right, left. You can have things do all types of things. Another thing to keep in mind is don't keep things static. So let's say, for example, you have a guitar on the left and the reverb of that to the right. You can have the reverb pan throughout the mix through the left and the right, or the delays ping pong, or have it to the left or the right for half the song and then switch it, right? So all of these things are cool, but automate them or put an effect that makes them modulate and move. That's another way to add a lot of width, is to have things not be static. Because when you play a mix, even if it's super wide, but it stays the same width the whole time, the listener's like, okay, wide mix. And then in 10 seconds, they're accustomed to it and it's just boring and flat and therefore not really wide. So movement is the key. I'd say the two words that are the key are randomness and movement. Randomness meaning not everything hard left, everything hard right. You know, it's like do some things kind of left, kind of right, some things to the right with a reverb to the left that's having a delay to the right and the left, right? The more chaotic you can make it, randomness, chaos are like the same thing. The more randomness you can get, the wider your mix is going to feel. And then I don't even remember what the second word I used was, but the more change you can have where it's not static, it's dynamic, the more change you can have throughout the mix is also going to give it a sense of width. Like, for example, in your verse, if you have it pretty narrow, when the chorus hits and it widens up, it's going to make it feel even wider than if it was just ultra wide the whole time. So try to get your width in the mix, but you can enhance it in the master. But don't just have the mindset of like, just mixing and then I'll make it wide in the master. It's probably not going to come out the way you want it. Get it as wide as you can in the mix and then do your mix bus widening, if any at all, while you're mastering. That's okay. But another thing to keep in mind is that width and, depth, all that also comes before we even start mixing. In the production and the arrangement is where a lot of, wideness comes from. For example, if you're producing the song and it's just pianos and vocal, like a ballad type thing, you can really only get it so wide. You could hard pan the piano one way, hard pan the vocal the other way, and then, technically it's as wide as possible, but that's probably not going to sound the best, and it's going to be lacking things in the middle. Now, that's not to say that ballads are wrong or bad, but they're not made for that, right? Whereas if you have a song with a bunch of layers and that width was in mind while producing, you can have something out there, a pad to the right, this pad across the whole thing, this guitar, this piano, right? The more things you have, the wider you can get it to sound. So sometimes you only can do so much as the mix engineer. Most of the width is going to come from the mixing, but it also needs to be a consideration, even, unconsciously by the producer or whoever's, producing it or arranging it. So the width comes before the mix even starts. The mix just really capitalizes it. And then the master is kind of like the icing on the cake, technical side of thing, make sure it works and translates and phase coherency, etc., and enhances it slightly. So there you have it, guys. There's some ways to think about width, wideness, stereo imaging, some things to kind of avoid and some mindsets to stay out of, and some ideas of how to get randomness and chaos in your mix, which is going to give you width. You want randomness and movement. So there you have it, guys. Let me know down in the comments below if you like this. If you have video suggestions, I'm open to those as well. If you could please like and subscribe also, I'd appreciate that. I hate to ask, but you know how this YouTube game is. Anyways, guys, I'm Inswain with Inswain Audio. I will see y'all tomorrow, man. Get out of here. Peace.